right, good afternoon. Today is Tuesday, the 13th of December, and I'm going to attempt to start creating our last project of the year, a MERN project. We'll do as much of the front end as we can today, and if we don't finish it all today, we'll finish it tomorrow and then go into the back end tomorrow. Now, this is not that different, I guess, from what Evan had done, and he did ask his students to try to see if they could deploy the project themselves. I'm going to go in. I went in and looked online as far as deploying MERN projects. I found this: how to deploy a MERN stack application to production code on code capsules. I haven't looked at it at all, but I'm going to try to in the next couple days, see if there's anything in there that that will possibly help us. All right, so before we get started, we are going to, in just a moment, I want to mention two things. First of all, this was a project I should have given out a long time ago. I didn't, period. It is going to be API compliant. You can see on here what's going to happen. It is going to be a to-do list. We will have get, post, put, and delete capabilities. All right, I'm not going to sit and read to you, but when I say that it's API compliant, slash to-dos will get everything. With a get, slash to-dos with a post will allow you to enter a new to-do item. Slash to-dos slash colon ID will allow you to do a put, so do editing, and slash to-dos slash colon ID delete will allow you to delete a specific to-do. Now, I also want to be honest about one more thing. A couple years ago, I took a project or a class online, and this is basically the project that we ended up doing in there. I tried going and ripping it apart and redoing it myself and had nothing but problems. That's on me. But I'm going to give you basically what we got in that class. So I'm not claiming this is mine. You should never claim this as yours. All right. The other thing that I would mention as well is it is API compliant, but with that said, even though it is API compliant, there's not going to really be any validation that we're going to do in here. All right. Even the database, I'm not going to make anything required. All right. So let's see and make sure that isn't anybody trying to get in here. It is not. Okay. So let's start. I'm going to start by right mouse clicking on here, doing a git bash here. All right. And I'm going to create a folder. Make a directory, and I'm just going to call it final MERN. I don't believe I have anything called final MERN. Okay, there it is. I'm going to immediately come in and do a git init on it. So I've got that. So right now, if you look in this final MERN, oh, I didn't CD to it. That was stupid. All right. Well, let's do this. Let's just get rid of that git, and we'll do it inside of final MERN here. There. Where's final MERN? There. Final MERN right there. So inside of there, I'm going to right mouse click, do a git bash here, and put in here a git init. Okay, so now I've got that git folder in there. Again, this is called final-MERN. So I'm going to go out here and I'm going to go out to GitHub. I'm going to go into my GitHub here and do a new repository. The owner will be me, and it will be again final MERN, which says is available. It'll be public, and I'll create it. I'm going to immediately grab this git remote line here. I like to do it like this. I know many of you use different mechanisms to get this stuff done, which is totally fine. Let me exit here. And this is where I am. I'm under final MERN, so paste that in. Try to paste that in. It didn't take it. So let me try it again. Copy. Paste. Hit enter. I'm going to do my git remote -v, and it looks, at least as far as I can tell, like it is all pretty much the way that it should be. Okay. So I'm going to jump back into here. And again, we're working on the back end. I'm sorry, the front end today. So I'm going to, while I'm in here, I'm again going to, from here, I am going to do my npx create React app, and I'm going to call this front end. And as you know, this will take a couple minutes, not even a minute or so, whatever. I will put the working copy out there on GitHub. If for some reason mine doesn't work, the person who did this for the class, I've got their source also. And the only thing I'd have to really change on it from what I'm going to do is they did it to work on the local machine. So we would have to make it so we could put it onto Atlas. Okay, so all right, there we go. All right, so I'm here. There's my front end, and I'm just going to clean it up. Now, you don't have to do this, and I know some of you had problems doing this. But again, I'm going to leave all this here, but in my source, I am going to get rid of app test index.css, no, I don't want to get rid of index.js, logo, report web vitals, and setup tests. So I'm only going to keep app.css, app.js, and index.js. All right, so the rest are now gone. I'm also going to come in here and immediately create a folder in here that is going to be my components folder. All right, there's more stuff, of course, that we're going to do in just a couple minutes. So let's see if we can go into code and start doing some stuff here. I don't think do I have Visual Studio Code running? I do not. So I'm going to say code dot. What's going on here? This is not the one I want. So there we go. All right. Now, even though I don't have to do it yet, I'm also going to come in here and I'm going to, underneath here, I'm going to create one more folder, and it'll be the one that we work on tomorrow, which is called backend. All right, so I now have my front end and I have my back end. Okay. All right. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to clean up the way that, typically we clean up in here. And what I mean is, all right, I'm going to go into source here and I'm going to open up my app.css and I'll keep that text align center. I don't know if I even need that or whatever, but I'm going to get rid of everything else that's in here. All right, so you can see how small that is right now. I'm not going to do any CSS on this. And I'm going to save. And then I'm going to go into my app.js. I'm going to get rid of this logo because we're not using it anymore. I'm going to remove everything within my div. And this is all stuff we've been doing all semester here. I'm going to change this to a lower, so class name app, and file, save. And then I'm also going to open up my index here. And I don't need this web vitals anymore. And I don't need this web vitals here anymore. All right, so that's all that I have. I'm going to do a file save all, go back to my app.js here, and in this div, I'm just going to put a to-do list app, just so there's something in there so I can attempt to run it and make sure that it works. So there's a save. I'm going to do my view terminal. And from in here, I'm going to do my npm start. And if it does work, it should come up and say to-do list app. Okay. And it doesn't like something. Let's see what's giving me an error here. It says I don't have the MERN package.json, which is right there. And there's npm start. Huh. This is related to npm and not being able to find a file. Well, let's try this. Stick start, huh? We've got it right here. I'm trying to figure out what it went like. So let's go back. Going into run app. And in app, I've got my return. I can put it over multiple lines. It won't matter. It's not going to hurt anything to do that or not to do that. But I have just a div in here. Last name of app. I've got the beginning div. I've got the ending div. I'm doing my export default on it. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to go back and I'm going to rebuild the project right now because I don't want to waste anybody's time on this, especially mine. All right. So get rid of the final MERN. In fact, let's close this first. npx kill minus port 3000. Shouldn't be a problem anyway. Exit. All right, so I'm going to get rid of this. These are big projects, so as you know, it takes a little bit of time. Kind of symbolic of a lot of the problems I've had this semester. All right, so let me right mouse click again in here, new folder, final MERN. Okay, I'm coming in here. I'm going to do my git bash here. I'm going to do a make, I'll double make their backend and a make their front end. I'm going to cd to front end. cd to front end. And I'm going to do my npx create react app dot. Do it like that and see if that helps. While this is tinkering, I'm going to jump back to here and to here, and I'm going to grab this line again, just copy this line in about my remote add. Make this a little bigger so you can see what's going on here. So I did a make dir back end, a make dir front end. I mistyped, did a cd to front end and an npx create react app dot. So let me clear. Let me just try to do an npm start from right here and see if it comes up. Should come up with my standard React type of project in here. There it is. Okay. All right. Then what I'm going to do is this. I'm not going to remove anything that's in here. All right. So I'm again going to do my code dot. That before I do that, let me copy back in that remote thing. Let's just do this. Well, I'm going to call this, I want to make a new project. In fact, final MERN. Let's see if that's still in there. It is. So let me copy this. I don't want to push. Copy that. Paste it there. Git remote -v. There it is. So clear. All right, and code dot. All right, and it looks like the stuff is set up in here. I am going to come into my source folder, and in here I'm going to make a new folder that's called components. But I'm not going to remove anything other than in my app.css. Again, I don't want all this stuff. All right, so again, I'm going to do a file, save all. And then in my app.js, I'm going to remove everything that's in here. So all the header stuff. And again, I'll put in here, hello. All right, and let's see if we get the word hello on the screen. I'm sure hoping I don't get that error like I did before. I don't understand why I did, but I did something wrong. Again, if it comes up with hello, there it is, right there. So you see it. Okay, so let's start up. Again, I want to reiterate the fact I'm not claiming this is my code. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come into the components folder that we just made. And in there, I'm going to create a new file. And that new file is going to be called section.js. Now, you do not have to do this when you are creating a React program. However, the advantage of doing this is it's going to allow us to section off our program in much the same way that you would section off a program if you were doing an HTML file. Okay, so I'm going to start by, in fact, we should be able to do our RAFCE and hit tab. There we go. All right, and that's a good start. So I am going to come in here and I'm going to pass props in. And the props are going to be called children. If you don't know what those are, hang with me for a little bit, and then hopefully you will. All right. Okay. So I'm going to come in here and where we've got this. All right. In here, again, I'm following the lead from this, where I took this from. So I'm going to say style equals. And typically you'd put in a set of curly braces, but I'm going to put in 2 sets because we want to set some margin in here. And we'll set it to 3 rem. Okay. All right. Doesn't look like it likes rem, so let's try working with pixels. Oh, it's got to be in double quotes. My fault. So 3rem. There we go. All right. And instead of this section here, I'm going to put in here children. This will help us, again, segregate our program out into pieces, so to speak. All right. So let me do a file, save all. Probably that's the last time we'll need to deal with section.js. But I'm going to come back in here into my app.js file, and I'm going to start doing some work in the app.js file. Okay. Now, eventually what I'm going to need to do in here is I don't need this anymore. All right. But I am going to import React. And then eventually I'm going to use both use state and use effect. All right. And I want to get all that from, and those should be curly braces. There and there. From React. Okay. All right. I'm importing that since there's not really much being done in there. That's not going to matter. There'll be a bunch more imports in just a little bit here. Okay. Now, eventually we're going to write some code in here, but for now, we're going to see if we can just set this up to make it do something. All right. So let's see. Working off of about 3 or 4 different files here. So you don't mind bearing with me for just a moment. I appreciate it. All right. First thing that we'll want to do just to make sure that this works, okay, is we're going to come in here and up here, I'm just going to create a constant that's going to be called app title, and I'm going to set it equal to do app. That's it. All right, just to make sure this works. So inside of here where we've got all this stuff, all right, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put in app title like that. Right? I think that should work. See something there that's red that doesn't look good, but we'll see. All right. So let's go back to here and refresh. And of course, just with all the luck I have, it's not working, but we'll get it to work. Don't worry about it. All right. Let's see if we can get it to work right now. Okay. All right. The problem with that is I want to actually put out a value right here. So what I'm going to do here is a couple things. First, I'm going to start using those section tags. Okay. And I am going to put this in here. All right. But I'm going to put it in as an H1 tag. And then rather than just app title like this, all right, I'm going to put it in curly braces. And then not even worry about that and put it like that. Now, before it was giving me an underline right here, and it's not anymore. So hopefully that's going to fix everything. Okay. Note build failed. Unexpected token. Will it appear? App title. Oh, give me an error there that says identifier expected. because I'm looking at the way the author did it, and that's the way that I did it, except he called his app title here and here, but that should be absolutely no difference. Still getting the same thing here. So I'll tell you what, for now, let's not put anything in there. All right, that's fine. In fact, I'll leave an H1 in there. I'll just put in an H1 and see if I can put that in. It says to do app. See if that gives me an error. Section. Oh, that's the problem. Okay. All righty. How about this? Import section from components / section. That'd probably help. So let's go back and see if I put it the way it was, if it works now. So I'm going to put it here, app title, and we'll see. There's no error that's showing here. So file, save all, and there's our title. Okay. Now that's not much. I understand that. So we're just going to keep going on from there. All right. Oh. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a form, and that form will be in here after we move this over, and we will in just a moment. All right. But before we do that, let's bring in that semantic UI stuff that we had from before. So I'm going to type in here CDN for semantic UI. All right, and there it is from the cdnjs.com. I'm going to go down to the one for CSS, and I'm going to copy the link tag. So that's now copied. And then I'm going to go back into here, into public, and into my index.html file. And right up above the title, it doesn't matter really where you do it, I'm going to paste that in. So I now have that in here. Okay. All right. So that's a file, save all. All right. And it'll just help when we're going through here as far as setting everything up. Okay. All right. So let's go in and again, under our components folder. So let me close this. Let me close index.html and let me close app.css. I'll leave app.js open. And in my components folder, which now has just a section file in it, I'm going to create another file. So a new file, and it will be form.js. All right. And we'll put a bunch of stuff in here. So let's start by importing React. In fact, let's do it the other way, the RAFCE. All right, we want to import not only React, but also I think all we'll need in here is use state from React. All right, let me close this so I've got some room to work with. All right, for right now, we're not going to worry about writing any of the code. Well, we will, but I want to make this look decent. If you say, I don't know what you mean, you will in just a couple minutes. All right. So in this return that's right here, let's go in and start making some stuff. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a form. And I'm going to give it a class name equal to UI form. All right. And I'm going to tell it on submit. So when the form is submitted, in other words, when I click the button, okay, I'm going to set that equal to a routine that we're about to write called handle form submit. All right, so that's first thing. There's the beginning of our form. And of course, since we've got a beginning form tag, and I don't know why it didn't give it to me, but we need an ending form tag. There we go. All right. Then I'm going to make another div in here with a class name equal to UI grid center aligned. Now, one thing about this, just so you know, is again, semantic UI is like Bootstrap, but whereas Bootstrap works on a 12 column format. Semantic UI works on a 16 column format. But other than that, they've got a lot of similarities. All right, so then inside of here, I'm going to put in a div with a class name equal to row. And I'm going to put in another div with a class name equal to column, but then you have to specify the width. So I'm going to say 5 wide, like that. Right? And I'm noticing in here, it looks like I didn't close this div that's right there. So there we go. All right, so we've got this div. Let's see, what do we got here? Div, and doesn't have my ending div, so we'll fix that one right now. There we go. Everything should be running fine right now. All right. So in here, we put this in 5 wide. We're going to have an input tag. All right, and we're going to have a few things that we're going to put in here. Now, I'm meshing together a lot of stuff because I'm trying to do about a week's worth of lecture in 2 days. Okay, so we're going to put in here value equal input value. And that's the value that basically that we're going to end up putting into, we're going to end up putting that into, that's the value that'll be put into this input text box. All right, on change equals handle on change. In fact, we'll just call it, I'm going to do it the same way the author did. Handle input change. Remember, we need to put that in curlies. This. There we go. The type will be text. And we'll put a placeholder in here. That'll be equal to enter to do. To do. ... Okay. Now, the reason I'm getting the error right now is I've never closed this input tag. So let's close it right here, and then the error should go away. Now, there is no ending input tag. You know that. All right. So why doesn't it like that? Might have to put a slash in there. There we go. All right. And we're going to come in here and add a couple buttons. Okay. So if we did it down here outside of this row div, they'd be on different rows. We don't want that. All right. So what we'll want to do is put it down here. Okay. And I'm going to put in here div class name equal column, column 1 wide. We're going to do this twice, just so you know. And I'm going to put in here a button. And I'm going to put it over multiple lines. So I'm going to say the type equals submit. All right. The class name is going to be equal to UI button circular icon. So it'll be just a little circle. And we'll make it green. And then we will add to that one of the built-in icons. So it'll be the circle. Now we have to say what we want to put inside of it. So let me get that button that's there. So class name equals this. All right. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say I class name equals white plus icon, and then end that, and then end my button. Now, if I try to run it, I'm probably going to get errors because I've got this handle input change here and this handle form submit that as of right now have not been written. So let's just put these up there and I'll leave them blank to see if we're going to be getting any output or not. So before the return, I want to come in here and say const, tab over. All right, and that's equal to an anonymous function. And we'll do the same thing with the other one, which is the handle input change. So there's nothing in there. We'll put some code in there in a second, but let's see if I've broken anything. So file, save all, jump back into here, into there. So I'm gonna have to go back to my view terminal again. And then let's run this. So we've got npm start. And again, if I run into any kind of problems where it keeps breaking or whatever, of course, it's not showing right now, which isn't good, but we'll just keep working on this. All right. And if something just stops showing or does whatever, all right, then I'll just put the instructor from that class, his code out there, and we'll just go over that. All right. Again, I'm not claiming that this is my work. All right. Let me get rid of that, and that, and we'll leave it right there. All right, so let's see if we can figure out why this isn't coming up with anything. Change type text, please do. That is a valid input tag, which is not showing. That is a valid button tag, which is not showing. So I'm going to add one more of these buttons. So I'm going to put another one in the next to it or under it. It'll again be one wide. It'll again be circular. All right, but not the plus sign in here. I don't remember what we're going to use, but we'll find out. All right, we'll leave it just like that for now. Okay, let's go back in then, and then let's actually write the code that we have in here. All right, so we've got our const form, and we're going to put some code in here again, as you could probably guess. The first thing we want to do is we want to set up a state. All right, that's going to be that value. All right, so we'll have to set the value. And that will be equal to use state. And we'll just set it up to an empty string. Again, that is the value that will exist. That is the value that will exist inside of the input box, all right, that we're creating. All right. So we've got a handle input change and a handle form submit. All right, we'll do the form submit here first. We want to make sure we're not going anywhere. So we're going to come in here and put in E for our event. And then here we're going to put E.prevent default. All right. And then I'm going to say here, if the input or the value, we'll call this input value. Oops. And we'll call that set input value. All right. So if that input value dot trim is equal to the empty string, well, what do we know then? You should know this already. All right. You should know that that means if that's the case, if it's equal to the empty string, that we've entered nothing in there. So we're just going to return. Oops, there's nothing more to do. It's an empty to do. We don't want to add it to our list. All right. Okay. But we're going to call a routine that we've yet to write that's going to be in a different component that's called add to do. All right. Oh, I don't know what the heck happened there, but add to do. And we're going to pass into there a title. That's going to be basically the text that we're putting in there. So that'll be our input value. All right, we're also going to be passing in there completed. All right, and we'll set that to false. The fossil to false. Now let's talk about for a minute what this means. Again, for whatever reason, it's not showing up on the screen right now, but we're gonna get there. And what we want to make sure that we do when we call this add to do thing is that we want to pass it whatever is inside of there. Okay, why? Because when we create our model tomorrow, we're going to have two different fields in it. One of them can be called title and it'll be a string, and the other one can be called completed and it'll be a Boolean. All right. Okay. Finally, we're going to want to come back after we do this. So this is after we submit the form, and we're going to want to say set input value to the empty string. Okay, not Kelly. Boy, oh boy, I learned to type, Jeff. All right, so there's that. Now let's come back and write this one. That's the form submit. So let's go in and write the handle input change. It's very short. What we want to have happen in this input change is whatever we end up typing in to that input box, whatever we end up typing into that input box, all right, we basically want to set that to our input value. So we'll again come in here and we'll put in E and we'll say set input value, set that equal to E dot target dot value. Now, this should make sense to all of you by now. All right. What this is saying is grab whatever we put into. Please grab whatever we put into. All right, grab whatever we put into that text box. All right. And basically have it show. All right. Okay. So let's see, return. I don't even need a div here. I can get rid of that. We can just, because all we have in here is a form. We could put it in as a div. It doesn't hurt anything. So let's check this. The class name is UI form. On submit, we're telling it to handle the form submit. All right. We're setting it up as a UI grid that is center aligned. So it should be centered on the screen. A class name. That is row. Right. A class name of column. So this should be the box that where we want to enter our inputs into right here. It's 5 wide. Then we're having 2 buttons underneath that. All right, now I'm looking here and, I'm trying to see what could possibly be goofed up on here. And, could be a lot of things. A div there. And we got a div there. That div goes with that div. That one goes with that one. So that looks good. That may be why this wasn't working to begin with. I don't know. I'm going to grab this line where I call this add to do, and I'm just going to comment it. Whoops, I'm going to comment it out for right now because we haven't written that yet. So I want to see if I do a file, save all, and if I go back into here, it still isn't showing. Son of a gun. Any good. Let's see if we can do one last thing though before we head on here. Whoops. And that is I'm going to say here class name equals UI grid center aligned. I just want to see if I can get that to come up in the center of the screen. So there you go. That moved over. Why it's not showing the other stuff, I'm not sure. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go till 1 o'clock, which is 8 more minutes. Then I'm going to take a 10-minute break. Then I'm going to come back and keep doing this until I've got all of the front end done, whether that takes till 2, 3, or 4 this afternoon. All right. Okay, so I'm looking through here and I think we've got just about everything we need in here. File save all. The reason this probably isn't showing is how about this? How about import form from dot slash components slash form. Okay. So let's do a file save all here. See if that brings up anything. And it, of course, did not. Well, I would be nice here to tell it this resonate here too, wouldn't it? Section form. There we go. How about that? So file, save all. Now let's look and see what we've got. There you go. Now I'm going to change that button in just a minute. But here's our to-do app. So we can come in here now, we can enter stuff. Nothing's happening when we do. Excuse me. But we got to start here, okay? All right. And actually, we're going to want this to be a delete icon, and we're going to make it red. All right, so this is going to be when we want to say something is complete, and this is going to be when we want to delete a to-do. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do two things. First, we're going to come in, all right, and in just a second, we're going to actually come in here and create our to-dos. All right, but before we do that, let's see. We're going to create another component first that's called list. It won't be very big, and the list component is going to end up holding. It is going to end up holding our to-do list. So that's what's going to be, it's going to be holding what's down here. So this is the form right here. All right. I guess I could have even come in here and made another one of these for the title, just so you see that. We could have made another component for the title too. That would have been fine, but I'm not going to waste time doing that now. So boom, I'm just going to start working on this down here. So we want to come into here and in here, I'm going to, in my components, I'm going to create another file that is called list.js. All right. And I'm going to import React from React. And let's go back and do it the other way. So RAFCE. So there's my import React from React, and there's my const list. Now this is going to have some stuff passed into it. All right, so I'm going to put that stuff in here now. It's going to have the list of to-dos. All right, it's going to have what's called the remove to-do list property or prop, and it's going to have the edit to-do list prop. Now, should have done this to begin with, but let's do it right now. And that is, these should be inside of curly braces. So it always does this when I screw up and don't do my curly braces correctly. So there it is. Okay. And then we're going to come in here. So down here is going to be the actual rendered list in just a minute. All right. But up here, we're going to put in const rendered list equals list dot map. And what we're going to end up doing is we're going to end up going through every single to-do that we have, and we want to basically fill this list up with that. Why? So we can spit it out down here. We're going to fill up this rendered list with that by doing a list.map. And then in here, we're going to have rendered list. So we've got our list.map right here. All right. And we're going to have quite a few things in here. So let me hit enter. And I'm going to come in and say item, because that's each individual list item that's in here. And what do we want to do to each individual list item? So the stuff that's in here now, we're going to do this stuff to every single one of our list items. All right, this will be inside of to do, which we haven't created yet. We'll create it after the break. Try that again. Yeah, that's fine. We'll fix it like this then. There. No. All right. So title equals item dot title. So for each one of these, this is going to again be the text that we are putting into. This is the text that we will be putting into the input box. All right. Then we'll have completed, which is our Boolean, and that's going to be equal to item dot completed. All right. And then we'll have our remove to-do list prop, which is going to be equal to, and it'll probably put this on one line after I save it, but that's okay. We'll pass in the event and edit. Sorry, remove. I'm on remove right now. Remove to-do list prop item dot underscore ID. We're going to talk about what all of this stuff means starting after the break. All right, and let's do one more here. Oops. Let me do a file save and see if it puts it on one line. And it did, which is totally fine. So let's come in here and do the other one on one line too then. So edit to-do list prop, and that's equal to our updated item. Let me turn on word wrap here. Okay. And finally, we're going to need a key. And that's going to be set for now, at least, to our item dot title. So what is with this mess that we have here? Well, basically, we're going to be wondering when we enter this stuff in here, all right, this will allow us to be able to remove something based on the ID. This will allow us to edit something based on the ID. All right, and then our return is simply going to be this, all right, which is inside of the div. And let's see. So we had here return. Let's put a paren in here. We'll just so we're sure we've got it open multiple lines, and we'll add another paren in here in case we got to add anything else later. All right, and then export default list. All right, so let me do a file save all here. It is 101. I'm going to come back at 110. So I'm going to leave this basically just blank for right now. All right, the screen will just stay up there the way it is. And when we come back, I'm going to actually write what we're doing in here for our actual to-dos. So we'll come back. In fact, let me do that real quick. File, save. I'm not going to try to run it because I'd probably end up with an error right now if I did. All right, maybe I wouldn't. It looks like it's going to run. But, all right, I am going to come in here and under my components, I'm going to add one more component. So a new file, and that'll be called todo.js. And that's where the magic, so to speak, is going to happen. It's 1:02. I'll see you in 8 minutes. All right, it's a little bit early, but I'm going to come back and write probably the longest thing that we have to write today. And again, I'm going to try to explain it. All right. And I want to go back when I'm done and see exactly what I've missed because I'm sure there'll be something. All right. Now, let me go back to this app before we write this. And right now in our app.js file, all right, right now in app.js, okay, we've got it set up so that we've got our title, and that's showing right here. All right, and we've got our form. All right, so the next thing we're going to put in here is our list that we just created. Now, if I try doing this, I'm going to get an error, and I want to show it to you. So I'm going to put in here list, and I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to put edit to do list prop equals edit to do. Sorry about that. Edit to do. All right. And I'm going to say remove to do list prop. These are all those things we used in the other one. That's equal to remove to do. If you don't understand what any of that stuff means, we're going to be going over it. All right, so remove to do, right? And then our list is going to be equal to what we're going to call our to-do list. Now I'm getting an error right now because I haven't finished this tag. So let me close the tag. All right, now I'm going to run this, but I'm going to get an error, and I want you to understand why I'm getting an error here. So let me do a file, save all, and let me go back to here. All right, and it says that none of this stuff is defined. And you're like, yeah, it is. No, it's not. Because again, I've got to go back up to the top, and I've got to say import list from components list. All right, so let me do a file, save all. I still may get errors. No. Okay. And it does tell me it doesn't like this, but we're going to fix all this. So let's go in and write our to-dos right now. So let me move over. Okay. And I'm going to start writing this right now. So let's do our RAFCE, CE, and hit tab. All right. We're going to need use state in here. So not just React, but also use state from React. Okay. We've got our const to do. We're going to have a few things we're passing into this, just so you know. We're going to have the title of our to do. All right. We're going to have whether or not it's completed, which is that Boolean that's true or false. We're going to have that remove to do item prop. And we're going to have that edit to do item prop. It's kind of weird that they make you turn on word wrap for each file, but I guess that's what they do. All right. So that's the first thing. Then inside of here now, we're going to set up 4 types of state. The first one is a const, and it's going to be called is editing. And set is editing. And that's going to be anytime you start something with is, I mean, just virtually always, it's a Boolean. And I'm going to set that equal to false. That is, are we editing the to-do item or not? Okay, that's what that represents. Next, we're going to have a thing in here that's going to be the value. Okay. So const value, set value, and that for now at least is going to be the use state, and that's going to hold our title. All right, we're going to have another const that's going to be called temp value. All right. And is, or set temp value, I'm sorry, set temp value. All right. And that'll be equal also to use state title. And then finally, we'll have one more const that'll be, we'll call it completed state. The reason I'm calling it completed state versus completed is we already used the word completed. Okay. We can still call this set completed, and that's fine. And that's equal to use state with completed. Now, there's going to be some very important stuff that's in here that may or may not make a lot of sense. But let's see, it looks like I still have got these problems in here, so I'm going to have to fix those. But if you remember the way that this looked, if you remember the way that it looked, what's important in here is we're going to have a thing that's called is editing. Why? Because what's going to happen is if it turns out that we want to edit an existing to-do, we want to be able to just double click on it, all right, to edit it. And when we double click on it, okay, what should happen is we can go and we can remove what's there, we can add more to it, we can, modify it, do whatever we want to do. Without having a button, we're going to do this. But if we are editing, okay, then we have to look out for a few things. For instance, if we hit the enter key when we're editing, right? If we hit the enter key when we are editing, well, now I want you to stop editing and put the new value in there. On the other hand, if we hit the escape key while we're editing, all right, then what we want is we want it to revert back and do nothing. All right. So the reason I'm telling you that is this is going to be the value that's in there. But when we double click and start typing something else in, that's going to be this value. The reason that that's important is if we go and change the value that's in our to-do, then we want to make sure that we set the value equal to the temp value. On the other hand, if we're typing something in and we hit escape, what we're typing in is in temp value, but we wanted to revert back to the original value. Now that may have made very little to no sense, and that's totally okay. Hopefully we're going to be able to see this in action. If not today, then tomorrow. All right. Like I said, there's probably 70 or 80 lines in this routine. So let's put this stuff in right now. All right. A lot of it is going to be in here because this is what we're returning. So let's come in here and let's set this up to class name equal row. Okay. And what we put in here next is going to be quite a bit of stuff, to be honest with you. We're going to put in quite a bit of stuff, and we're going to put it within curly braces. Now, that may make absolutely no sense to you, but remember, when you put something in curly braces, when you use JSX like this, you're basically putting in JavaScript statements that can be executed. In other words, not just pure HTML. So what we're going to want to do here is if indeed you are editing. So if this is true, if that's true, then what we're going to want to do is give you a space to edit. And we got to have that value that's in there because you want to be able to edit your existing value. On the other hand, if you're not editing, we just want to show it to you. Okay. All right. And again, if that doesn't make a whole boatload of sense, bear with me and we'll keep talking about it as we go on in here. So we're going to say is editing. okay? And if you remember, then there's different ways we can do this, but we're going to use the question mark colon operator. So this is if is editing is true. We could use an if statement and an else, but I just did it like this. That's the way he did it too. And I'm going to say div class name equals column 7 wide. Div class name equals UI input fluid. Okay. For some reason, we don't have our, do we not have our ending div here? Let's see. Div has no corresponding closing. That's it right there. Div. Well, we'll see if that works its way out eventually. Oh, because we have one here. We don't have another one down there. There we go. That should fix it. There we go. All right. So we want an input tag in here. And we're going to write these in just a minute. So on change. So if anything that's in there changes, we want to handle input on change. All right. On key down, that'll be equal to handle input key down. All right. Autofocus, we want to make sure that when we double click on it, that it has the focus right away. So we'll set that equal to true. And finally, value will be equal to that temp value. Okay. So we've got all that. It's giving me an error because I haven't ended this tag yet. So let's end that. And our error is gone. All right. So this says if we are editing, this is what we want to have happen. I'm going to write the other part of this down here in just a second. Then we're going to go back up into here, and we're going to write all those routines. Okay. And then we'll see where we are at that time. So that's all of this. So let's see. This is our div. All right. So we have the question mark here. So let's put the colon here. All right. And what's going to happen is we want to return a bunch of different stuff. And if you say, I don't know what you mean, you'll understand in just a minute. All right. And now that I think about it, I just want to do one thing quickly. We don't need two things in here. So I put in two different buttons. We only need one in here. Okay. In fact, just so I don't forget to do it later, because you know me and you know I will, let's go to this line that I've commented out and let's uncomment it. All right. Now it still may be giving me some errors. It is. So hopefully all of this stuff is going to work its way out by the end of the period today. And we'll go over all of the code again when we're done. All right. So where was I here? We do a file save all or just save, go back to here. So I'm on my colon right now. I'm going to return three things. So I could put them all in a div, but let's just put them in an empty tag. All right. Remember the difference between that and putting in a div is it doesn't make a div. All right. We could do that. That would be not, we could make a div right there and put it in there, but that's fine. I'm going to leave it the way it is. All right. And we're going to return about three things in here, something like that. And in fact, let's double check and make sure we've got word wrap is turned on. Good. Div last name equals column 5 wide. This is going to be for our to-do list. on double click equals, we'll call it handle double click, handle double click. All right. Then in this div, we're going to have an H2 class name equals UI header plus the completed state, question mark, space, and green. Okay. There and there. All right. Right, so you got green. Nothing. And then our value. Now, in English, what this is going to say is the following, just so you're aware of this, because you may find this, what we're doing right here, really, really confusing. All right. So what's going to happen in here is when we come in and we click on an item, there'll be a blue button in here in a minute that we're going to put in underneath this one. And if we click on that one, it's going to say that the to-do has been completed. And if it's been completed, or in fact, I guess that's this button, the green one, then we're going to turn the text in here blue. And that's what we're telling it to do. In fact, let's see right now, what are we in here? This is green. So this is going to be to remove something. Okay, let me go and hit enter here. I think we're getting an error here because I don't have my closing div, but I'm not sure. There's my beginning div. There we go. We move these over, but not this one. Oh, okay, that's because it's on the same line. Okay, so we've got that. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to paste it and make another. Let's just grab the div, and I'm going to throw out everything else that's in here. All right, so I've got my div. Class name equals column one wide. These will be our two buttons. Okay. And these will be what we're going to be able to do. We will have in here two different buttons. Okay. And they will allow us to go in and either mark a to-do as being completed or remove a to-do. Okay. All right. So we've got column one wide. Now, you may find this that's in here really confusing. So in English, in English, what this is going to say is, okay, when you come in here, there we go. This is saying in English, when we come in here, if, all right, if the to-do is completed, have it be blue, the text be blue in color, and if it's not, have it be green in color. Okay. In fact, now that I think about it, that's well, we'll find out. Okay. All right. So it's giving me an error here. So let's see if we can figure out what the error is. I think it's because with here, okay, green, I need this, and I also need a curly here. It still doesn't like it. And we need our ending button tag as well. Right? Well, you can tell already I'm not closing everything, and that's why some of this stuff is appearing as red. So let's figure this out right now. Okay. Well, we never closed that button tag there. So there we go. And there's our beginning div, there's our ending div, there's our beginning button, closing, and there's our ending button. So let's see what's wrong. All right, so div, class equal column one wide button, class name equals UI button circular icon, plus completed state, question mark, blue, colon, green. All right. And we also want to add to this when we click it. So on click is going to be equal to handle button click. All right. And then finally, we want to end that. Okay. And then we want to end our button. So I don't need this div. We want to end our button. And we want to end here. And we've got this. So there's something really hosed here. So we got to figure it out. This looked okay. There's no error in here. So it's not till we get down to here. Div, class name equal column one wide. That looks okay. Button. There's the beginning of the button. There's the end of the button. So that's good. So button. Class name equals. Okay, there's the problem. All right. Class name equals UI button circular icon. Okay, you can see there the errors are going away little by little. Plus, because we don't want to end it there. Plus, there it is, the completed state. So in English, this is going to say, all right, when we click a button, do we want something to appear as green or do we want it to appear as blue? And again, hopefully in just a few minutes, once we add some more code, stuff is going to really start to come together and working so you can see exactly what's happening in here. All right, so that'll be the first one. And we're going to come in here and we're going to make another div. Try to do it very slowly so I don't screw it up. Class name equal column one wide. And again, we're going to have another button in here. And I'll hit enter and I'll close it right here. All right, just so we've got the close for it. Okay. In fact, this can be get rid of. And I'm going to hit enter here because we're going to add some more stuff. On click. equal, I'm going to call a routine called remove to do item prop. All right. Curly there and no quote there. All right. And the class name is going to be equal to UI button circular icon red. All right. And then we will come down here, not giving me any errors yet. Well, there's one thing there it doesn't like. So let's see. I think it's because I didn't close that div off here. There we go. All right, now I don't have a closing div, so I'll add one right here. All right, now everything is copacetic, as they say. All right, and after this, we're going to put in an I, class name equals white remove icon. I, and our button tag, and our div tag, and our non-tag, or whatever you want to call it, this and that div. Okay, fine. Everything is cool. There's no errors, but I do have to write a bit of code up here. But again, we're going to go over everything before I finish up today. Okay. The order in which you put these routines in, of course, does not matter. Rid of that blank line there. So I don't want to put this in the return. I want to put this above the return. So I should go in here. That was why I had that extra space, I guess. So const handle double click. It'll again be an anonymous function. And we're going to set is editing to true because we will be editing. So when we double click on one of our items, we're going to have the ability to edit that particular item. All right. Then the key down, it's whatever key is being currently pressed. The two keys we have to worry about are the 13, which is the enter key, and the 27, which is the escape key. And since we need the E, we have to pass it in. And if the key we pressed was equal to 13, meaning we'd hit the enter key, we want to do one thing, we'll do it in a minute, else if that key we just pressed was equal to 27, then we have hit the escape key and we want to do something else. And they're not quite, but they're almost the opposite of one another. All right. So if we hit enter, we want to say edit to do item prop. So we're going to set this. We're going to set this title right now. So we're going to come in here and say title temp value. Okay. Then we want to call set value and pass it temp value. So we have made a change, in other words. All right. And we want to set is editing to false because we're done editing. Now I said these are almost, the reverse of one another, because if it's here, rather than this line here where we set value to temp value, we want to set temp value to value. So we want to revert back to whatever we had in there originally. And again, set is editing to false. All right. Then our const handle input on change. All right. And that's in there. We are going to want to say set temp value to whatever we just keyed in. So again, we need E in there. And we're going to set this to e.target.value, just like that. Finally, the last one we want to hit the right in here is const handle button click. Better make that a const. There we go. We want to set completed to what we'll call old completed. All right. Let's see, we got this, got this. Why is it giving me an error here? It says unexpected keyword or identifier. So let's see if we can figure that one out. Button click. That should be a parenthesis there. And that should be a parenthesis here. And that got rid of our errors. Okay. All right. So let me do a file, save all. Back to here, it's still giving me a bunch of errors. Okay, that's fine. We're going to be working on those probably next. Let's see. Let's go back and look at what we've done so far. All right. So this is the form. This is the thing that came up originally that has a text box in it and now just one button that's a round circle with a plus sign after it. And that's going to be, for lack of better words, our submit button. All right. So we're saying there, we've got import React and use state, and then we're setting up our form. So we've got a state variable that we're setting up on line 4 that we're calling input value, which originally will have a value of the empty string because we haven't put anything in there yet. All right. And then we've got a handle form submit. And we want to make sure with our form submit that we don't allow the default action to happen. So we passed in E and we said E.prevent default. So that cannot happen. Then what we do is we say, hey, if there's nothing in there, so if we trim the input value, in other words, remove any leading or trailing spaces, and it's empty, just return, because there's no sense in going on. Otherwise, if we get down to here, we have put something in there. So we want to call this add to do. All right. And we want to pass it both. That's the value that's in there, and that's its status, which will end up basically being set to false by default, because if you just put something in there, it's not completed. All right. And then we are emptying out what was in the text box. All right. Then we have a handle input change. And all that is doing is it's setting that input value that we're going to use programmatically to whatever we have just entered into the text box itself. All right, then here is our form that we're returning. So you'll notice it has a class name of UI form. When we submit it, we're calling handle form submit, which means it's going to be calling this routine right here. Okay. And we have a class name in there. It's going to be a grid and it's center aligned. And we've got a row. And in that row, we've got a column that's 5 wide. This is going to be our input box. All right, that's going to hold what we type in for it to do. The value we're setting to a variable called input value that we use up above. Whenever we change what's in there, we call handle input change. All right. It's a text box, so our type is text, and we put in a placeholder, even though we didn't have to. Finally, after that, we're going to have a button. And it looks like, did I not word wrap here? Nope. All right. That button will again be 1 column wide. It will be of type submit. The class name is going to again be a circular icon. It will again be green. And we'll put a plus sign inside of the green button. And that's pretty much it. So we've got what? Button, div, form, div, and then end. So that is our form. All right. Now, before we did the form, or after we did the form, I should say, we went through and we looked at this. Oops, I just closed it in my other computer here. Okay, we brought up this list component that we were creating. So let's take a look at that. And I don't know what this is. Import editable input types. I have no idea. So I'm going to get rid of that. So we're importing React from React. We also have to come in here and import to do from to do. Now we only say // because we're already in the components directory. Okay. Then we've got this list. And this is going to be actually our list of items. This will be if we decide we want to remove something, or if we decide we want to edit something. Now, this is turning gray, which makes me wonder if originally when I set it up, I may have misspelled it. That's okay. We'll look at that in a bit. All right. This is our rendered list. So we're mapping over this. And for each item that's in here, we're telling it we want the title. We want its completed status. We want its remove status. We want its edit status. Right? And then finally, when we return, all we're returning is our rendered list. Okay, so file, Save all there as well. Now it's still giving me all of these errors inside of app.js. So we're going to have to work on that in just a minute. But you'll notice those are in app.js. This add to do, all right, that's in form.js. And what that means is we're calling a routine that does not yet exist. All right, when you get the is not defined. In our list, we're calling here, okay, so there you go. That's on line 10. So that's wrong. So let's at least fix that one. So in our list, line 10, there was the T. All right, now that error should be gone, and it is. There I mistyped. We've got temp value. So let's go, I'm just going to fix these. So I'm going to go back into do, and it's line 17 and line 21. That should be a V. And in line 21, where we've got in there, where we have in there, so what are we in? We're in here. So we want to set temp value. That should be value, not temp. So little by little, we're ferreting the errors out of here. See that? All right. So now in app.js, the edit to do, the remove to do, and the to-do list are not defined. So we're going to go and put those in just a moment. And hopefully when we do that, all four of these errors will be gone. So I'm looking at, like I said, I've got another computer here. And we have gone through our section. We talked about that. We talked about the to-do.js. We talked about the form.js. And we talked about the list.js. So let's go back to our app.js right now. And this is the reason that we're having some errors right now, just so you know. All right, we're going to see if we can remove all of these errors right now. Okay. All right. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to go back into our app.js file. Oops. So let me close this. Let me close this. Let me close this, and we'll bring this up. All right. So in our app.js, you can see what we're importing right now. Okay. We've got form, and we've got section, and we've got list, and we've got that title, but we're not really writing any code in here underneath that title. We just got our function app and return. Now, remember, this says function app. We can also write that. I probably didn't do this one correctly. So we can also come in here and write const app paren per equals paren, and then fat arrow. All right, which would be a cleaner way of doing it. So in here, what do we want to put in here? Well, we want to create our to-do list. So this is a state variable. So const to-do list. And did we have use state, use effect up here? We do. So const to-do list, set to-do list, and we'll set that equal to use state. And this is going to be, to start with, an empty array. All right. Then we're going to call use effect. Now, this is special. All right. It's going to look really weird. Let me type in, there's only about 6, 7, 8 lines of code, something like that. But let me put in all the code, and then we're going to go back and go over it. All right. And like I said, I'm at a couple more lines or a line or so more to write, then we'll be done. Something is screwed up here, but we'll fix it in just a moment. All right, so let's see if we can figure out this here, because I spelled function wrong. That looks better. All right. And we use effect on here. All right. For lack of better words, the use effect when we call fetch data, what you'll see tomorrow is this is when we're going to attempt to grab all of our to-do list items. All right. And when you use effect, you aren't supposed to put the word async right there. It goes against the conventions of what's supposed to be happening in a use effect. All right. So we create another function we call fetch data, and we put async in front of that, but then we have to call it. So we actually call it down here. And we want to make sure that only the first time that this is called that the array is empty. So that's why we do that. All right. Not all of this stuff will make sense. This may not even end up working today because in the copy that I'm going from here, which is the final copy, it has both front end code in it and back end code in it. All right. But my hope is by tomorrow, when I put in or add the back end stuff, that all this will work. All right. I guess we'll see. So we've got our use effect. And now we have to put in something for our add so we can add it to do, remove so we can get rid of a to do, and edit so we can edit it to do. Okay. So let's do those down here. Now those we're not affecting all of the data, so we don't have to do them in use effect. All right. We don't have to do them in a use effect. And like we're doing here. Okay. So we've got this what const app equals use effect, boom, 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 boom. That should be ending this. So good, I'm done. All right. So next will be our add. So const add to do. And that'll be equal to async. And it'll be the item that we're about to go in and try to add. All right. And we're going to say const data is equal to await to-dos dot post to-dos item set to-do list to the old list. And then we're going to use something. Now, Mr. G should have gone over this with you last semester. We're going to use something that's called the spread operator. All right. Which means what we want to do is we want to bring in everything that's in the existing list. We don't want to do something like this. We don't want to say like, this is equal to the old list plus data. We might even be able to get away with that, but there's a cleaner way of doing that, and that is using the spread operator. So 3 dots, old list, comma, data, like that. That's the add. Let's see if our errors have gone down at all. Not much. Well, it says here add to do is not defined, so let's see if I save this, if that is going to go away. Got add to do. It is not. So we still have 4 errors that we're working with. Okay, so there's our add to do. Next, we've got a const remove to do. And this one's a little bit special, and actually this next two are special, because remember when we do a remove to do, I showed you this at the beginning. We want to make sure when we remove that we're passing in an ID. All right, so we need to put that in here. Call it ID, because just let's call it what it is. And we're going to await to-dos dot delete. And you'll notice I'm using templating here. All right. And the reason that we're using the templating right there, the reason that we're using the templating is that we want to be able to, this is going to be what we're going to end up keying in. So this will be localhost followed by whatever number we have in there, etc. All right. And then this will be the ID of what we want to delete. All right. And again, let me come in here and make sure that our word wrap is turned on. In English, what this is saying is, I want you to filter through the list of to-dos, and I want you to return every one except the one that has an ID equal to what we just set up. In other words, the one we want to remove. All right, so there's our remove. And then the only one that's left here is our edit. And yeah, async and await to-dos dot list to-dos dot, well, I don't know why it's doing that, dot put, I'll have to change that manually in a second. Just like we did before. And this will be the other stuff, for lack of better words. All right. So we don't want that to say to-do list. We want that to say to-dos. All right. I could be missing something here. You know, anything is possible. You know that. All right. So I did a save all. Let's see if we have any less errors. No, we don't. To-dos is not defined. To-do list is not defined. Add to-do is not. Well, we're down from 4 errors to 3. All right. And one of those, this add to do. All right. See if we can get work on these. So this was, there's add to do. And I think it's gray right now because it's not being called by anything, but I thought I took that line and uncommented it. So let's see. It's not giving me the error there. It's giving me the add to do error in our form.js file. And that was at line number 13. So that add to do that you're seeing right there should be calling one that's right here. Yeah, there's some problems in here. Says to-do list. This should be to-dos dot post. All right. And I will look over all this code. I want to make sure that I get it as close to working as possible before I take everything that's here and put it out to GitHub. All right. Now, one thing I wanted to mention, because we're just about finished with this, but one thing I wanted to mention was this. Okay. If you go out to, I don't know if it's reactjs.com or .org. I think it's .org. Yeah. All right. When you go out here and you look through the documentation, all right, and you go in, all right, I guess that wouldn't be a great place to look for it. So let's see, I'm going to do a search in here and I'm going to look, for example, for a use effect. All right. And this is where the stuff is explained to you. So notice what it says. Use effect accepts a function that contains imperative, possibly effectful code. All right. So it's something that could change the scape of everything you are working in. All right. So they explain in here the timing. They explain that there's different ways that you can call this, etc. All right. But this is a gold mine in here because to really understand everything that's happening, you pretty much got to read what's in here. Otherwise, it's not going to make a whole lot of sense. All right. So what I am going to do is, even though it's only 2 o'clock, all right, because what I want to do here, all right, what I want to be able to do here is to, for lack of better words, kind of catch up and get rid of these errors. All right. Now I had written a bunch of this. I had gotten most of it to work, even making a bunch of changes on my own that I was going to share with you. But when I tried to combine the back end and front end together, I had nothing but problems. All right. So when you look in here, again, there's use state, there's use effect. You don't have to worry about, we're not using any of the other hooks that are in here. Okay. So I'm going to go and try to clean this up and make sure it looks as good as it possibly can look. And then tomorrow when we start, I'm going to start adding backend code in. And actually, there's not that much back-end code to add in here. So after we get done with that, then the next step, all right, the next step after that will be to try to make these two things merge. So in other words, let the front end and the back end talk to one another. So we are going to test this once I get it up and working. We are going to test it using Postman. Now, that said, we're going to have to add an add-on for Postman. We'll talk about this tomorrow. All right. But remember, we tried using that. I don't remember the name of it anymore, but concurrently. So we would be able to run two different things at once. But tomorrow will give me the chance to really explain to you what cores is. All right. When we put in the back end. So I'm going to just stop right here. I'll put this out there in just a little bit, but I don't want to put it out there until I have these errors fixed, or hopefully have them fixed. So tomorrow, starting at 12:05, I'm going to first write the backend code. Second, I am going to try to make the two talk to one another. So the front end and the back end. And if we get that done, I'm going to try to look tomorrow morning and see if tomorrow morning I can do some work with what I've shown you before. And that is, so here, deploy a MERN stack app for free. And what came up in here was a bunch of these with Heroku, which we don't use anymore. All right, so render didn't render when I looked at it, it said it wouldn't handle a database. All right, I'm going to say software to deploy a MERN stack for free. And that was, oh, I don't remember where it is anymore. I wish I just, but I'll find it by tomorrow. All right, so we're going to attempt to do all this stuff. All right, if I get it all done tomorrow, that's it. I'll spend Wednesday grading. You'll have your grades by the end of the day, and you'll know how you did. And again, for those of you who took umbrage with the original assignment in here, I apologize. Okay, talk to you tomorrow.